Like Jonathan Gannon is going to have to put together a product
Yeah.
in September and October next year that signals we've turned the corner and here come the wins. That is damn near impossible. It's New Year's Eve and we've got some news for you. Johnny Venerable, Brack, PHNX Cardinals here as the Jonathan Gannon wheel turns, Bo. We get closer to Black Monday. Signs pointing to JG returning on multiple fronts, including an article from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler.
That's right. Jeremy Fowler kind of echoing the sentiments of Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissaro, many NFL insiders that have kind of maintained the same messaging surrounding Jonathan Gannon, that ownership, they like JG. They want to give him another shot. Obviously, the wins or lack thereof and the losses stacking up and the margin to defeat growing by the week, it feels like Arizona Cardinals are going to stay steadfast with their assurance that they gave over a month ago to JG after the Cardinals became less competitive. But it seems to be in line with what the messaging has been lately, and all signs are pointing to JG returning, Johnny. And it's just another one of those things where it's a dismissal of what the fan base wants, but the organization pointing to maybe having that continuity, preaching patience, and wanting to see this through, and really kind of having its belief out in kind of fading the outside noise in its head coach.
I think that's the emphasis, is fading the noise. And the noise is only going to grow stronger and larger over the next 6 days, 5 days. And of course, anything can change between now and Black Monday. I think it just comes down to one simple fact. Michael Bidwell does not want to fire Jonathan Gannon. He doesn't want to do it. We've been told for 2 months now by people who we trust, who've come on our show behind the scenes, he doesn't want to fire him. And I think you and I are surprised to the lengths in which he's holding that bond, because the Cardinals are literally doing everything on the field to warrant a removal of the head coach. Non-competitive outings, defense is atrocious, not buttoned up, being laughed at. I mean, a traditional sense would say, given the record and the product, can't return. But Michael Bidwell, and this is where you can open yourself up to criticism, is going to retain a head coach that's 20 games under 500 and growing. He's going to retain a head coach now that he does not want to then have to subsequently pay a new head coach. I think there are a lot of us that rolled their eyes at that notion. I think you can warrant that now, absolutely. And he's going to retain a head coach that we know he's very good friends with. And again, he was friends with Steve Keim. He is friends with Steve Keim. He was employed for 10 years, missed draft pick after missed draft pick. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised. We entered the season thinking that Jonathan Gannon, not Monty Ossenfort, was probably the second most influential person within the Cardinals behind Michael Bidwell. So we fast forward now, and even a 14 historic loss season isn't going to shake that confidence. Like I know Michael Bidwell believes this season was unacceptable, but at the same time, you saw that Fowler report. It references what, Bo? Injuries and quarterback. And that has been the PR spin blueprint. And I'm telling fans don't agree with that. We don't agree with that. But the Cardinals have taken that stance and they are not moving off of it.
No, they're not. It's been pretty consistent as far as what that they're trying to push, force feed that messaging to a fan base that is like my 6-month-old and is keeping his mouth closed. He's not taking that on. Even if I do like the airplane trick, it's not happening. Like they are not going to take that at all. And that's unfortunately the only messaging that they want to stand by. It's like, well, if you're going to retain Jonathan Gannon, make it known why that is. And it's unfortunate that hasn't come out. We'll see what happens next week when the 2025 season's officially in the rear view mirror and they've made this move official to push Gannon through. But yeah, it's a very straw man, just kind of, I guess, reasons for why they've fallen short this season. And, it becomes, plays into the narrative as far as the quarterback that they are trying to scapegoat a little bit Kyler Murray in this situation, but the injuries seem to be the largest crutch. And you look at it when the losses piled up, they had 5 of them before the injuries really started to mount for this Cardinals team. And then kind of the levees broke on the rest of the season. But, it's to get back to your point as far as the owner being impressionable, right? I mean, he kept Keim in that building for 20 seasons. And did Steve Keim have the resume worthy enough to stick anywhere around for 20 seasons, 10 as the general manager? I think everybody can make the case for no. And then, you've got Jonathan Gannon, where he is like, don't be kind of swayed by his press conference persona. We know him, like the fan base has gotten to know JG, outside the playing field, outside of the facility by, I think real kind of authentic moments, interviews, and times like that, where they know he can be very charming, very persuasive. And Michael Bidwell is seeking somebody with a lot of football knowledge, and he can impress you with that. And I think that's where Bidwell is very kind of impressionable and has this belief in Jonathan Gannon that despite such a large and loud outside noise, he's willing to stay and keep his conviction in him and move forward with JG despite the outcry.
Yeah, and I again, fans have a right to be outraged. They have a right to say, I'm not committing to this team from a season ticket standpoint. Michael Bidwell is going to have to take ownership of that.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon is going to be a polarizing figure, if he hasn't become one already, from the end of the season through next year. And the only thing that will remedy it is wins. And we all know, like, if they get off to a slow start, like Jonathan Gannon is en route to be potentially Michael Bidwell's first in-season head coaching firing,
right,
which would be next year. And I think all parties know it. And like the biggest argument is, it's not like they've got a Justin Herbert or a Joe Burrow like on IR that's going to come back in March for them, and they're going to be like, we can set this right. Like if you're a Zach Taylor, it's like, I can win now with Joe Burrow. I've shown that I can win. They don't have a quarterback.
Right.
They don't have a quarterback of the future. They've got roster questions. They've got defensive questions. They're going to fire Drew Petzing and Jeff Rodgers. We've sourced that. We've reported on that. We'll have names for the OC when that time comes. But if you're Jonathan Gannon and you're Michael Bidwell, how much of this, Bo, is just, hey, we know that next season could be bumpy to start. I would rather see it through with a guy that I trust rather than hiring a Clint Kubiak or a Robert Saleh. And again, I don't agree with that mindset, by the way. I think you're in a much better space with this fan base and public perception if you get a Ty Simpson or a Dante Moore and you pair them with a new regime and say, let these guys grow together and we're not going to put a win mandate on this. I just feel like Jonathan Gannon is going to have to put together a product in September and October next year that signals we've turned the corner and here come the wins. That is damn near impossible. And I think a lot of fans look at that as maybe malpractice now that you leave Ossenford and Gannon in charge of that, where they could be short-sighted with their decision-making.
Yeah. I mean, regardless of a quarterback, and quarterback is obviously the most important position in all of pro sports, you're bringing in any young talent, free agent, draft, whatever it may be, but keep it with the idea under the guise of a quarterback. Say it's Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
You're bringing them into a powder keg volatile situation from the jump, where there is not going to be any grace period. There's not going to be any we're building messaging that's going to resonate with anybody any longer. And there's going to be no patience if the results don't show up immediately. And you're asking for patience throughout an offseason where each and every move is going to be muted and really dumbed down by, well, I still don't trust who you're putting these players underneath as far as the coaching staff goes. So I'm going to reserve my judgment until you guys persuade me otherwise.
Right.
And that's a delayed gratification that really doesn't exist in this league any longer.
Yeah, I think when you've got a figure like Jonathan Gannon now in this offseason, it's going to become one where the fan base turns their attention to consistent frustration, and there is going to be very little that he can do to mitigate that. We anticipate coaching changes next week. I know that Josh Weinfuss in his article signaled that could be weeks in the making. It's not going to be weeks in the making. It's going to be next week. They're going to use it as a PR spin to mitigate what's happening with Gannon and that decision. Like position coaches, maybe they could take their time, but like they're firing the two coordinators next week. Nick Rollis will have some kind of shell 1 or 2 year extension, and then it will become like this team is going to try to win back the court of public opinion. But if you look at our Twitter mentions and direct messages, any kind of content the team puts out, that's impossible. And I will preface this by saying, Bo, we don't expect a firing. That doesn't mean it still can't happen.
Sure.
Like people were asking me as early as today, like, what percentage would you put it on? And I'm like, because even the Fowler verbiage signals like they've been non-competitive.
Right.
I Michael Bidwell could always change his mind based on articles that come out this week, based on fan outcry, based on season tickets. So I think
cold feet happens all the time, man.
Right. If you're holding out hope, check back in on Monday. But we are doing our best to try to prepare everybody for what we feel like is the likely stay the course path.
Sure. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it unlikely? Yes. At this point, just kind of reading the tea leaves here. What do you think about Jeremy Fowler kind of echoing the reports that are already out there? Most NFL insiders and Jonathan Gannon himself are operating under the belief he's coming back beyond 2025 for the very least the 2026 NFL season. What's your outrage? What's your thoughts on this? How could it work? Drop a comment, leave a like, subscribe to PHNX Sports.